What's happening? Good Thursday to all of you. Thanks for joining me as always. It is much appreciated. The combine in Indy continues, and the reports are starting to fly. We've got the latest on the Patriots and what they want to do with the number 3 pick. We got the latest this morning from The Athletic, Jeff Howe and Chad Graff. Now, before we get into this report, I want to remind you, I want to give all of you a warning. It is smoke screen season. Always keep that in mind. I'm not telling you this is a bad report. I'm not telling you that Jeff Howe, friend of the podcast, didn't get good information, or Chad Graff didn't get good information or intel from sources. I'm just reminding people this is smokescreen season. Lots of agendas are being served right now. With that in mind, let's get to the Athletics report this morning. Gerard Mayo made sure to be here. Why? The first time coach wants to sit in on interviews with the top quarterback prospects. The Patriots really want to draft a quarterback with the number 3 pick. The front office seems to be on the same page that the best way to jumpstart this rebuild and yield long-term success is to find a young quarterback in the NFL draft to build around. The Patriots look at it like this. If you get the rare chance to draft one of the top prospects at the game's most valuable position, it's worth taking a big swing, even if the surrounding roster isn't great. So Jeff Howe, Chad Graff, talking to people on the ground in Indianapolis this week at the Combine, and those people are telling both of these guys that the Patriots are heavily leaning towards drafting a quarterback at number 3. That's what they want. And I think we have to make sure to present that distinction. This is not telling us what the Patriots are absolutely going to do at number 3. This is telling us what the Patriots want to do, what they want versus what they'll do. If things don't work out this week with the quarterbacks, it is obvious the Patriots could move in a different direction. They could pivot. They could change their minds. But right now, as they sit there, through these interviews with Drake May, Jaden Daniels, and Caleb Williams, as they're going through the interview process, as they're having these discussions with people at the Combine, what is being said is that the Patriots want the quarterback at 3. If it's their perfect scenario, it's a quarterback at 3. They're still going to go do all the work that they've got to do. They're meeting with Marvin Harrison Jr., reported by Mark Daniels. That should not be a surprise. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be a top 5 pick in this draft. So the Patriots, of course, are doing their homework on all of these prospects. But right now, in that front office, during all of these meetings that they've had over the past couple of weeks, Gerard Mayo, Elliott Wolf, Matt Groh, Pat Stewart, Alonzo Highsmith, during these meetings, they've walked away from them saying, what we want, what priority number 1 is to draft a quarterback at number 3. Now, before I go on with my thoughts and get some of your thoughts, is there a motive to leak this? When we talk about smokescreen season, again, people are serving agendas. Is there any motive from the Patriots to leak this to Jeff Howe and Chad Graff? Why would they leak this information? Why would somebody with the team leak that they're heavily leaning towards drafting a quarterback at number 3? Not a lot of great options, honestly, when you think about why this would be leaked. The first thing that might make sense is maybe this is a message to Arizona. You know, I talked about this weeks ago in a podcast. The dream scenario for me is that you love both May and Daniels, and you know you're going to draft one of those guys. But Arizona knows that they want to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. So what the Patriots could be doing is that they could be trying to leak this information out there to tell Arizona, we want a quarterback, you want Harrison, let's do work here. Let's get together and make a trade. Now, some would argue, Nick, why would Arizona do that when they could just stick and pick at 4 and get Harrison anyway? My pushback on that would be, well, the Patriots could play the game. The Patriots could tell Arizona, hey, we got somebody on the phone right now. They want Marvin Harrison. We have no issue moving down in the draft because we think we're going to get the quarterback that we want with this team and that pick that's being offered. So you better step up. I'm not telling you it's likely. I find it very unlikely that this has to do with Arizona, but I'm just trying to figure out why this would be leaked, other than it just being leaked and the Patriots want the world to know that they're leaning heavily towards a quarterback. The other scenario, and I think this is much more plausible, maybe the Patriots are leaking this to Graff and Howe of The Athletic because they're actually trying to get somebody in this free agency market to lower their demand. This could be a way, if you're looking for a smokescreen and you're looking for an ulterior motive as to why the Patriots would leak this information out, you could argue that the Patriots might be interested in one of the free agent quarterbacks, and because of that, they find that free agent quarterback to be asking for too much money, so you throw out there that you are heavily leaning towards drafting a quarterback at 3 to try to put pressure on that free agent quarterback to lower the demand and sign a contract. So that could be part of this. We'll have more on the free agency path a little bit later. But let's get back to Jeff Howe, Chad Graff reporting this morning that the Patriots really want to draft a quarterback at 3, and that's how they are heavily leaning as of right now. I 100% agree. As you know, if you've watched this podcast, I agree with drafting a quarterback at number 3 if you love that quarterback. And I found it interesting that in Howe and Graff's story, they wrote this: the Patriots look at it this way. If you get the rare chance to draft one of the top prospects at the game's most valuable position, it's worth taking a big swing, even if the surrounding roster isn't great. The Patriots believe that the best way to jumpstart a rebuild and yield long-term success is to find a young quarterback in the NFL draft to build around. I can't agree more. People always want to point at the San Francisco 49ers. Look at what the Niners have done. Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant. First of all, we have to acknowledge and appreciate and respect how good San Francisco has been building that program, okay? We have to respect the idea that they hit on a number of mid-round picks big time. George Kittle in the 5th round, right? Hufanga later in the draft. There's a number of guys. I don't have to go through all of the names. Warner's another one. So, yeah, if you hit on both of your wide receiver picks, Debo in the 2nd round, Ayuk in the 1st round, if you hit on the tight end pick in the 5th round and that guy ends up being an all-pro, if you hit on the linebacker in the 3rd or 4th round and that guy becomes an all-pro, you have to draft spectacularly well if you're going to go with the 49ers rebuild plan. You have to make almost every decision perfect during the draft process and nail 5, 6, 7, 8 picks to create a team like that. And let's not forget that the Niners also understood they had to take a swing at quarterback. They moved up. They gave up a bunch to draft Trey Lance. To draft Trey Lance. And they made that move because they knew Jimmy G was an average quarterback. So even the Niners tried to take a big swing at the top of the draft. Now, they swung and missed, and fortunately, they landed on Brock Purdy eventually. But even the Niners, who built the program almost as good as you can build the program via draft and free agency, even they tried to take the big swing because they saw Jimmy G cost them a Super Bowl against the Chiefs a number of years ago by having a terrible 4th quarter. But you need to be almost perfect if you're going to build everything first before the quarterback. And when you look at the Super Bowls, again, Jimmy G's Super Bowl, he had to be much better in the 4th quarter to win that game. They needed a very good performance from Jimmy G to win that game, and they didn't get it. They didn't get a very good performance because Jimmy G's not a very good quarterback. Brock Purdy needed to be much better to make up for the margin of error against the Chiefs this past Super Bowl. The rest of the team had to be near perfect to beat the Chiefs because Patrick Mahomes is just that damn good at quarterback. And when you have a quarterback who's considered top 5 to 8 in the league, it gives you much more margin of error. So I agree with the Patriots. I agree that drafting a stud quarterback is the best route to build a team and to have long-term success. You're looking at the ceiling of who could go number 3. You're looking at that ceiling of the third pick versus every other option you have. All right, before I move forward, I don't want to forget to remind you, give us that like, the thumbs up. More likes means more eyeballs. We've had some of our best weeks the past couple of weeks with this podcast, and it's all because of you giving us that thumbs up when you're watching on YouTube. Takes a second of your time. We punch that YouTube algorithm in the face on this Thursday. Like, comment, and subscribe. By the way, we're almost at 2,100 subscribers, trying to hit 2,250 by free agency. About 9-10 days away. So let's pump those subscriptions as well. Like, comment, subscribe. Ad-free. An ad-free Patreon page is going to launch on March 11th. I'll have more details on that next week. All right, Josh Gemini jumps in with a super chat. You could jump to the front of the line with your question and comment by sending a super chat. That also obviously contributes financially to the show, i.e. financially to me. Did you see Mayo walking back his burn some cash comments in Karen Guregian's new article? Thoughts? Is this related to taking some pressure off Elliott Wolf? I'm going to dive a little bit more into that tomorrow, Josh. But here's what I'll say, okay? My surface take, my initial reaction to that is rookie coach, rookie mistake. And we have to be prepared for these kinds of things. Gerard Mayo is going to do some things that backfire. He's going to say some things that backfire. This is one of the aspects that we discussed regarding a rookie head coach who had coached in the league for only 5 years. He's going to make some mistakes. And going out there and burning some cash, is he walking that back because he thinks he messed up? Is he walking that back to put less pressure on Elliott Wolf? Is he walking that back because Robert Kraft told him to walk that back? Is he walking that back because he doesn't want to show the hand to the rest of the league? We don't know. But my initial reaction was rookie mistake. He regrets it, and now he's going back on it because of it. Thank you, Dan Hansen, for the $2 super chat. Always appreciate it. Again, if you want to jump to the front of the line, when you send a super chat, add a comment or a question so I can get to you first. All right, back to Jeff Howe, Chad Graff, The Athletic, reporting this morning that the New England Patriots are heavily leaning towards drafting a quarterback at number 3. That is what they badly want to do. The risk reward. If you hit on the pick, you're set for the next 10 to 15 years. So what this story is telling us is that Elliott Wolf, Gerard Mayo, the rest of that front office, this organization believes that it's worth the risk of taking that swing at number 3, because if you hit, the reward is gigantic. If you hit on that pick, it's gigantic. And I agree with that. If you hit on the third pick, let's say Jaden Daniels and Drake May, let's say they reach their potential, okay? They hit their ceiling. You are in the conversation along with the Joe Burrows, Josh Allens, and Lamar Jacksons of the world. You are within that conversation by year 2 or 3. If the quarterback's a stud, you nail the pick at 3, you're in that Burrow, Jackson, Allen conversation within the next 2 or 3 years. And that's why you take the swing. Because if you don't take the swing, the likelihood of you being in that conversation within the next 5 years drops precipitously. And I'm not going to say the Mahomes conversation because he's at a different level. Dan Hansen followed with the question. Would it be worth throwing the bag at Mayfield, then trading down and loading up the roster around him? Dan, I did a pod on Baker Mayfield going back about a week or two ago. I'm not against the idea of Baker, but again, I feel strongly that if you love the guy at 3, then you take the guy at 3. Rookie contract scale, the fact that you'd have that guy for 10 to 15 years. Again, if you hit on that guy, he has a much higher ceiling than Baker Mayfield. So I'm not against the Baker idea, but you have to make sure that you're not in love with one of these guys that are available to you at number 3. And we'll get more into the free agency market in a little bit. This wait until next year mentality that some have with this third pick in the quarterback position, it inevitably leads me to the question, well, how long are you willing to wait? Say you wait until next year, and next year you don't have answers. Do you wait till the year after? The year after that? You waiting until year 4 or 5? You're sitting at 3 right now. You know the quarterback prospects. You've done the work on them. You're having the interviews this week. You're going to go to their pro days. They're going to visit Gillette Stadium. You're going to go through this entire process. And you know that you're sitting at 3 right now. You have that in hand. You don't know what happens next year. You don't know what happens in 2 or 3 years down the road. So if you don't take the quarterback right now, especially if you love that guy, now you're taking the risk that next year will work out better. What happens if by the time you get your quarterback, the rest of the roster isn't as good as it was when you could have gotten your quarterback quicker? The rest of the team, guys want contracts. Will you be able to afford everybody around that quarterback? Look at San Francisco right now. They've got to make some tough decisions. They have Brock Purdy, yes, but Christian McCaffrey is aging. Trent Williams is aging. Deebo Samuel is aging. And Brandon Ayuk might force himself out of San Francisco. So the window is closing right now on the Niners. And it's closing because you don't have that absolute top 3, 5, 8 quarterback. And I know how well Brock Purdy played this year. I get it. Another conversation for another day. But the point is, Brock Purdy, to get to that level, you got to wait for him to get to that level. And he may never get to that level. But while you're waiting, everybody else is getting older. Everybody else wants money. Everybody else wants to go, do what they've got to do. All right, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. More likes means more eyeballs. Let's continue to drive this community. If you want an alternative, this is the alternative. If you're frustrated or you just want something new than what is out there with Boston Sports Talk, this is the place to get it. 11 a.m., Monday through Friday, live on YouTube. You can also get this on demand once we're done. Spotify, Apple Pods, all of those things. We're everywhere. Like, comment, and subscribe. All right. We have more. We have more from Chad Graff and Jeff Howe in The Athletic. Speaking of the quarterback position, and the Patriots heavily leaning towards taking a quarterback at 3. Here's what Howe and Graff wrote. Even better for the Patriots is taking a quarterback at number 3 won't solely be about filling a need. They'll be getting a player they actually covet. According to several NFL executives unassociated with the Patriots, the top available quarterback prospects appear to align with top decision-maker Elliott Wolf's preferred quarterback traits. If May and Daniels ace this week, and again, that's the if, that's the premise. If May and Daniels ace this week at the Combine, it would go a long way toward ensuring the Patriots get their next quarterback in the draft. I love this. I love the idea. The line, taking a quarterback at number 3 won't solely be about filling a need. It better not be. If you're drafting a quarterback at number 3 because you're just filling the need, that's a disaster. Don't be too thirsty. Don't be too thirsty when you're looking around the market, folks. Because if you're too thirsty, you're too desperate. And when you're too desperate, that's when you reach in the draft. So as long as you're telling me that you are going to look at this through the lens of, we have to love the guy. This is not about need. This is about a quarterback that we love, that he checks the boxes. Good. Because if you're too thirsty and you get desperate, that's when you make a mistake. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to make a mistake anyway. But to approach this in the right manner, you have to approach it saying they have to check all the boxes. I'm not drafting Drake May or Jaden Daniels unless they check all the boxes that we have. They got to check them. We got to love them. They got to check them. You want to have the ultimate comfort level with the quarterback position. And the way you do that is you say to yourself, do we love the guy? We love the guy. This isn't solely because of a need. Maryland jumps in with a good question. How can they ace the Combine when none of them are throwing? Well, first thing I would say is they're going to throw at their pro days. So they'll eventually have to throw before the draft happens. The Patriots will be at the pro days, and they'll see how all of that comes together. But at this point, Maryland, really the Patriots know. As far as on-the-field stuff, They know most of what they need to know. They've seen these guys throw hundreds, if not thousands, of passes. They've watched the film. They've talked to, coaches. They've talked to people that are around these players. They know a lot of what these guys can do on the field. Throwing at the combine is not going to make that big of a deal. I mean, Lamar Jackson did not have a good combine, and we all see how that worked out. So we know that we've been told that Elliott Wolf is a big trust your eyes. And he said that this week at the press conference. So you got to trust your eyes. And we know that Wolf is a big fan of watching tape. And so what Elliott Wolf sees on tape, he believes. And so I'm sure that he has poured over the tape over the past 2 years, 3 years, looking at Daniels, looking at May, looking at Williams. So I don't think throwing at the combine would sway them either way. The ace to test this week is all about the interview process. It's all about what makes these guys tick. Are they competitive? Are they leaders? In this story, Jeff Howe and Chad Graff, they actually tell you what the Patriots will be looking for. They want to know why Drake May's production dropped this year compared to what he did in 2022. That's going to be a question. Jaden Daniels, the question with him is whether or not he processes things quick enough right now. And so to get him on the whiteboard with a couple of plays is going to be paramount when you try to assess his ability to make that leap in year one at the NFL level. The other thing about Jaden Daniels is they want to see if he put on some weight. A lot of people believe that he was 200 pounds at best at LSU. He's 6'4". And obviously he likes to run, and he doesn't do a great job at protecting himself. So when you talk about acing the test this week, those are the questions that are going to be asked. They want to know how much these guys want to compete. They want to know how they see the game, how they think the game. And they want to ask them questions about some of their struggles and see how they react, how they respond to those questions. That's this week. We're talking mentality. We're talking makeup more than what these guys would do if they went out there and ran a 40. Because the front office and the coaching staff, they've seen all the tape they need to see at this point. And again, they'll have the pro day. So make sure they check all the boxes. What about the other guys? Some would say, Nick, what about the other guys, the other prospects in this draft? Why wouldn't the Patriots just wait to draft J.J. McCarthy or Bo Nix or Michael Penix? Here's what Graff and Howe had to say about that. On the idea of passing on a quarterback at number 3 or trading back, there's growing buzz around the league that the next tier of quarterbacks could be gone by the time the Patriots pick again at number 34. Michigan's J.J. McCarthy seems to be generating momentum as a first-round pick, and Oregon's Bo Nix may not be far behind. Michael Penix Jr. might be the only second-tier quarterback on the board entering Friday night of draft weekend. If you trade down, you risk other teams jumping you. Let's say you actually like J.J. McCarthy. Let's say Elliott Wolf and Gerard Mayo, Alex Van Pelt, Ben McAdoo, they all put their brains together and they say, you know what? We think McCarthy can be a starting quarterback in the league. Okay, you're not taking McCarthy at 3. At least I don't think you are. And if you trade down, now you risk other teams leapfrogging you and taking McCarthy. So now you got too cute. You were trying to play checkers and you got screwed. So if you trade down, that's the risk. Other teams jumping you. If you move back into the first round, do you think that moving from the second round back into the first round is worth it to draft Bo Nix? I personally do not think so. I don't think Nix's ceiling is high enough to justify trading the assets it would take to jump back up into the first round if Nix is looking like a late first rounder to draft that guy. That's my own personal opinion. Maybe you disagree. It's fine. It's all subjective, right? Now, as far as Michael Penix being the guy that might be left on Friday night, you have to ask the questions about injuries. You have to ask the questions about him handling the middle of the field as a passer. You have to wonder about how he handles pressure. So what we're hearing now from Jeff Howe and Chad Graff is A, the Patriots heavily leaning towards taking a quarterback at number 3. B, Jaden Daniels and Drake May both seem to fit Elliott Wolf's criteria in what he looks for in a quarterback. C, they don't think moving back is the best idea. D, they don't want to move back into the first round late to draft one of these other guys like Bo Nix or Michael Penix. That's what you could surmise from this article. That's what we learned. We learned an awful lot from The Athletic today. Great job by Jeff Howe and Chad Graff on this. Now, we have more, because you might ask yourself, well, what happens if Daniels and May don't ace the test this week? What's the plan B? Have the Patriots been looking at other options? We'll get to that in a minute. Don't forget, give us that thumbs up. More thumbs means more eyeballs. That's how we pick up traffic. I don't ask you just to waste breath or to irritate you. It's because that's how we beat the YouTube algorithm. Every like helps us. So like, comment, and subscribe. We're trying to hit 2,250 subscriptions by free agency week. We're just over 100 away from that. We're about actually 150, 160, I think, away from that mark. So let's work hard. Subscribe if you like what we do here. It means the world to us. So like, comment, subscribe. And we got an ad-free Patreon for a small monthly fee that's going to launch on March 11th. It's going to give you exclusive content. More details on that next week. And don't forget to rate and review. All right. What about free agency? So the Patriots are heavily leaning towards drafting a quarterback at number 3. That's what they want to do, not necessarily what they're going to do. They still have steps in this process to make sure these quarterbacks are exactly who they think they are. Not what they are going to do, guaranteed. It's what they want to do. But what other avenues? What's the plan B? And you might be asking that. What about free agency? Here's what Graff and Howe wrote about the free agent quarterback options. The Patriots have also explored their options on the free agent market, which is set to include Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield, Ryan Tannehill, Joe Flacco, and Jacoby Brissett. That's according to a league source. But those veteran free agents all come with high price tags or fair question marks about their future performance. So the Patriots have dug into the free agency at quarterback. And the feeling from the Patriots is that either the price tag is way too high, these guys are asking for too much money, some of them. Others, Patriots aren't really sold that these guys are actually going to be good in 2024. Now, yes, it's possible. It is possible that this is a smokescreen. And I warn all of you about the smoke screens when we get to draft season and free agency season, because it is the silly season. So this is possible that they're trying to create a smoke screen here. And why would you create the smoke screen? Why would you leak this about the veteran free agents? Because you're trying to get them to lower their asking price. If you're Elliott Wolf and you don't like the idea of Baker Mayfield at $35 million a year or Kirk Cousins at $40 million a year, then you send this out there. Wouldn't that make all the sense in the world? I'm not telling you that's what's happening. I'm telling you it's plausible. It's plausible that Elliott Wolf, Gerard Mayo, and the rest of this Patriots organization, they actually are looking at a free agent quarterback. They have interest, let's say, in Kirk Cousins. They have interest in Baker Mayfield. But Mayfield and Cousins are asking for too much money. So if you're the Patriots, why would you leak this to Graff and Howe? Because you want to apply pressure onto those veteran quarterbacks. Hey, look, Baker, I know you want all that money, but we'll take a quarterback at 3. We're fine taking a quarterback at 3. Hey, Kirk, we know that you want $40 million a year. Great. That's what you want. We're more than willing to take a quarterback at number 3. So this is a warning shot, possibly, to these veteran quarterbacks. Lower your demands, or we're going to draft the guy. Lower that asking price. Another possible smokescreen agenda is that the Patriots are not willing to pay a bridge quarterback or a backup quarterback what Joe Flacco and Jacoby Brissett are asking for. So again, trying to drive that price down. Joe Flacco, let's say Joe Flacco is asking for $15 million guaranteed. Alex Van Pelt worked with Flacco last year in Cleveland. They could get their heads together. Van Pelt, Wolf, Mayo, Ben McAdoo. They say, look, we wouldn't mind having Joe Flacco to be the bridge quarterback. He worked great in Van Pelt's offense last year. But Joe Flacco's asking for $15 million guaranteed. Get the hell out of here. So that could be a plausible reason as to why you would be leaking this. Rob D jumps in with a super chat again. You can jump to the front of the line with the super chat. Also contribute financially to the program, i.e., yours truly. They need a quarterback from outside the draft for 2024. Yeah, so this goes into the idea, Rob, that we're talking about these veterans, right? The bridge quarterback idea, the backup quarterback idea. Dan Orlovsky said on ESPN this morning that he thinks that anybody who drafts Drake May should approach him and sit him for the first year and let him get some seasoning. So there is this approach by some when they map out their offseason plan. Let's bring in a veteran quarterback who can support that young guy. And if that young guy is not ready to go in year one, then you can start that quarterback. And I think that's a reasonable idea. Totally reasonable. Mahomes sat for a year, right? We've seen quarterbacks sit. Jordan Love sat for multiple years. Rodgers sat for multiple years. So I understand that idea, and I don't necessarily disagree with it. You might love the quarterback at number 3, but you might also believe that quarterback's a year away from doing what he can do at the NFL level. So you need to find somebody who can take over that spot for the year while you develop the young guy. And maybe the young guy pops by week 10, week 11, who knows, and then you throw him in there. But I do ask this question. If you're looking at these veterans, how do you weigh the risk of taking a quarterback at number 3 versus the risk of signing Baker Mayfield? Some may believe that Baker is safe. And again, I wouldn't be against the idea depending on the price. And if you don't love a QB at 3, I wouldn't be against the idea of signing Baker. But we also have to be realistic. Baker Mayfield's ceiling is what? He brings you a 10-win team maybe? Maybe you're a 10-win team within the next couple of years? So is it worth signing Baker Mayfield to be that 10-win team by year 2 or 3, and then you don't have the future answer at quarterback in year 4, 5, 6? Is it more risky to sign Baker and kick the can down the road than it is to take a swing at number 3 and draft that young quarterback? All right, more thoughts coming up in a minute. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We will be launching an ad-free Patreon March 11th, small monthly fee. We'll have more details on that next week. But if you're watching and you like how we deliver the news and opinion, and it's different than what you're used to, you want that alternative, give us that thumbs up. That's how we drive traffic. That's how we build this channel. It's been building momentum thanks to all of you liking, commenting, and subscribing, trying to hit 2,250 subscriptions by free agency week. We're about 150 or so away from that. Like, comment, and subscribe. Here's another risk question for you. What's more of a risk? Taking a quarterback at number 3 or signing Kirk Cousins to a free agency contract? There is, and I know that Kirk Cousins was throwing on a tennis court. Whoopity-doo. I saw it. You saw it. What if Kirk Cousins is washed? Are you comfortable signing Kirk Cousins to, let's say, $35, $40 million a year for the next 3 years? Are you comfortable with that when Cousins is 36 years old, coming off of an Achilles, and never has proven to be that guy to be able to take the team to the next level, even with Justin Jefferson and some of the weapons they have in Minnesota? What's more of a risk, drafting the quarterback at 3 or signing Kirk Cousins? I could debate that. I think it's signing Kirk Cousins. Doesn't work out, you could blow up your program for the next 6, 7 years. What's the risk of the number 3 pick and the risk of bringing in Jacoby Brissett or Joe Flacco to be your starter? I mean, we all talk about the bridge quarterback. What if that bridge leads you to a worse quarterback class? What if you walk across that bridge and you get to next year's free agency, next year's draft, and you go, man, oh man, our options are much worse than they were last year. I guess we'll sign the bridge again. Do you build a bridge to the bridge? How many bridges do we need here in New England? And let's not forget, if you do build the bridge, if you say Jacoby Brissett or Joe Flacco, and we'll get our quarterback in next year's draft or in 2026 in that draft, well, now you're weighing drafting number 3 this year, a quarterback, versus the assets that you inevitably would have to give up to move up to draft that quarterback 4 or 5 years down the road or 2 or 3 years down the road. So again, what's the risk reward? If you draft Drake May, is it better drafting Drake May right now or Jaden Daniels right now versus signing a bridge quarterback, hoping that there are better quarterbacks the next year or two than what May would have given you on top of the assets you had to give up? We all talk about the bridge. We all talk about, the quarterback position, but we don't include the context. We don't talk about the nuance of all these things. There's a lot of levels to this, a lot of layers. Here's what I would say. The Patriots do not want to put a Band-Aid on the gaping wound of the quarterback position. They don't want a Band-Aid. They don't want a mid-round draft pick. They don't want Jacoby Brissett or Joe Flacco. If you believe this story from Chad Graff and Jeff Howe, if you believe this is precisely how the Patriots feel, they're telling us we don't want a Band-Aid. We're going to hemorrhage. Until we find that next quarterback. And Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield, Jacoby Brissett, Joe Flacco, any other quarterback in this draft that you could get from the 2nd to the 5th round, those are Band-Aids. And we're not going the Band-Aid route. We want a shot. We want a swing at a legitimate stud quarterback. And the way we're going to take that swing at a legitimate stud quarterback is if Daniels and May ace the test this week at the Combine with these interviews, and they're there at number 3. That's not a Band-Aid. That's a solution. That's stitching it up and healing. That's what the Patriots are looking at. All right. One more thing I want to talk about, since we're talking about quarterbacks. Some of you might ask, what's this mean for Mac Jones? And as hard to believe as this is, there are people that still jump in the comments. They still ask me on Twitter, Facebook, everywhere, right? YouTube comments. Nick, why don't they just stick with Mac Jones? They didn't take care of Mac Jones the last couple of years. What happens if you draft Marvin Harrison Jr.? You go out, you sign a free agent wide receiver and tight end, and you surround Mac Jones with a capable offense. Why don't they do that? I mean, Mac Jones is going to make less than $3 million this year. Why not just keep Mac? Well, here's the latest on Mac Jones from Chad Graff and Jeff Howe. A trade is seen around the league as a mutually beneficial move. People close to the team said Mac Jones could benefit from leaving the scar tissue that has built up with the Patriots. And the Patriots seem eager to begin a new chapter with a young quarterback who might be better served with an older veteran backup who's enthusiastic about helping the young quarterback understand the game and life as a professional. That tells us a lot. Pay attention to that last line. The Patriots seem eager to begin a new chapter with a young quarterback who might be better served with an older veteran backup who's enthusiastic about helping that young quarterback. Translation: the people in that building at Gillette do not believe Mac Jones would suck it up, swallow his pride, accept being a backup quarterback, and go out of his way to help a Jaden Daniels or a Drake May. They don't believe that Mac has that kind of personality. And that's not a shot at Mac, by the way. It just tells you that Mac has aspirations. Mac still believes that he is a starting quarterback in this league. And so it would be a weird mix if you threw Mac Jones into the quarterback room with a young quarterback that's going to be given the keys to this organization. And so what Chad Graff and Jeff Howe's story is telling us, what that paragraph tells us, is that Elliott Wolf and Gerard Mayo and whoever else in that building there in Gillette, they don't believe that Mac is the guy that would sit behind the young quarterback that was just drafted and do everything he possibly could do to help that young quarterback. Mac's going to be focused on himself. Mac wants to be QB1. He don't want to be QB2. So QB2 Mac ain't going to work. And you can't tell me. And look, I was one of the guys. I was one of the people that stood by Mac Jones. Until that Colts game in Germany, I stood by Mac. I am of the belief that Mac Jones can be an average to slightly above average NFL starting quarterback if he's given the support. And we've gone through that a bunch. I don't need to continue the conversation. We had it a million times during the season. So I am one person that said, I think Bill Belichick hampered Mac Jones. I think he destroyed Mac's development, and Mac became a broken quarterback last year because of the terrible offensive line that was put in front of him, wide receivers that couldn't win at the line of scrimmage and gain separation. He had to work with 3 different offensive coordinators in 3 years. That's my take. But even me looking at this, I can't tell you that Mac Jones did anything last year that would earn him the keys to this offense in 2024. And you cannot walk into 2024 with Mac as the plan. You just, not after what you saw last year. And that's not even talking about the body language and, the questions in the locker room and do his teammates like him, to the coaching staff. I'm just talking about performance, nuts and bolts, meat and potatoes, X's and O's. Mac did not do nearly enough. The dude got benched for Bailey Zappi. How in the world can you have any level of confidence that Mac Jones could work out if you threw him out there as a starting quarterback in 2024? I don't think you can. And if you're drafting a quarterback, as Graff and Howe tell us in The Athletic today, if the Patriots are heavily leaning towards drafting a quarterback at 3, and that's what they want to do, not what they're going to do, we don't know. That's what they want. If they want a quarterback at number 3, and May and Daniels pass the test this week, then the best option for the Patriots is to go out and find a veteran quarterback who accepts his role, understands that he might start a few games if need be this year, but really the pivotal role that he will play with this football team is to help guide Jaden Daniels or Drake May. It's not necessarily to compete with that guy. Yeah, they'll have, a competition for competition's sake, but if the Patriots love the quarterback, they draft the quarterback, if they believe the quarterback's ready in 2024, there's going to be no competition. But if they think that quarterback needs a year to sit for seasoning, they need to find somebody who accepts that. Like, even if Mac Jones, let's say in a perfect world, you kept Mac and he was that backup quarterback, but he was the bridge guy to 2025 because you felt that Drake May needed another year on the bench, right? He needed a year on the bench before you gave him the keys to the car. Let's say Mac Jones plays in 2024. He doesn't play necessarily great, but he plays good enough. Now you can trade Mac Jones, possibly, but you would have to pick up Mac Jones's 5th-year option before May, right? May of this year. You've got to make that decision. So there's a lot of obstacles to that idea. So the best plan, love a quarterback at 3, draft a quarterback at 3. But before you get to that draft, find a suitable veteran who's willing to take on the role of bridge/backup quarterback who will help guide the young guy, Daniels or May. And you find that veteran quarterback in free agency. That's the plan. Happens to be my plan. Drake May at 3. As of right now, we'll see what happens the rest of this week. But Drake May at 3. Before you get to the draft, you sign Jacoby Brissett. Your quarterback room is Drake May, Jacoby Brissett, and maybe Bailey Zappi. And by the way, I think it's just better for Mac. Get away from the noise, get away from the critics, reset, refresh. It's just probably better off going somewhere else. All right, let's get to some chats before we bid you adieu on this Thursday. It was impressive the Niners were so willing to move on from their Lance pick. Showed guts. Little editor job by me there. Yeah, look, I think to a point it showed guts. But they also knew that Brock Purdy right now was a better quarterback than Trey Lance. And Trey Lance was never healthy. You want to talk about somebody who didn't have much experience. And I worked in Sacramento for a year and a half before I came back home for family reasons. I talked a lot about the Niners during that 18 months, 19 months. So anybody in this New England area, they say they know San Francisco better. I would debate that because I had to talk about the team for almost, 2 years. Trey Lance, he didn't have much experience at all. He didn't have much experience in college. I think he played 11 or 12 games. And then he was hurt right away when he got to the NFL. So I think the Niners just cut their losses. But I don't think they move on from Trey Lance unless they had Brock Purdy and they saw what Purdy did at the end of the 2022 season and said, yeah, he's good enough. We can survive with him. And also, don't overlook the ego. And ego's not a bad thing all the time, but don't overlook the ego of Kyle Shanahan. Shanahan believes that he could work with pretty much any quarterback and make it, a winning team. So that played a role. So, all of these things play a role. Drygo Arts FX says, if you hit, yes, it's worth it. But what happens if you miss? We discussed that yesterday's podcast. If you miss, yeah, it sucks. It sucks. But there's always risk. There's always risk with the draft. There's always risk drafting a quarterback. I mean, what if the Buffalo Bills decided not to trade up and draft Josh Allen? What would happen then? What would have happened if the Chiefs didn't take the risk of trading up and drafting Patrick Mahomes at 10? Everybody now goes, oh, Patrick Mahomes is a stud. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback ever, et cetera, et cetera. Right now, yeah. But when Patrick came out of Texas Tech, let's not get it twisted. Patrick Mahomes was not a home run prospect. There were a lot of questions about Mahomes. There were questions about him trying to do too much. There were questions about his turnover-worthy plays. There were questions about whether he could function within an offense consistently and be steady enough. And the Chiefs made that big old swing, moved up to 10, and drafted Mahomes. So there's always risk. It's about the evaluation. I mean, if Jaden Daniels ends up being an absolute stud and you decided not to draft him at 3 because you were afraid of the risk, then you kicked yourself in the ass. And then you have no answer. Look, none of this is easy. Of course, I think all of us, even if we want the Patriots to draft a quarterback at number 3, all of us in our sane minds, all of us look at it and admit that there's some risk. This is not an Andrew Luck. When everybody looked at it and said, oh, Luck is can't miss, man. My God, he does nothing wrong. There's risk with Caleb Williams at number 1. Like 99% of the time, there's going to be risk when you take a quarterback in the top 5. That's why the whole what if they miss argument just doesn't make any sense to me. There's always a risk of missing. All right, Weinstab, thank you. I appreciate the $10 super chat very much so. Again, super chats, you jump to the front of the line and you contribute financially to the program, i.e. myself. Thank you, Weinstab. If you've got a question, send your question. I want to make sure I get to the question if you have one since you sent a super chat. When you send a super chat, some people send them just to say thank you, just to let me know they're joining the show. Others, add a comment. So here's Weinstab. I'm all for letting the rookie sit for at least half a year. Not against it. Do what's best for the development of the quarterback. Just because you drafted that guy at number 3 doesn't necessarily mean you got to throw him into the deep end week 1. If you think it's going to take a half a year, if you think it's going to take a full year to develop that rookie quarterback, and in the long run, it means that rookie quarterback is going to be a stud, do whatever you've got to do to give you the best chance to develop that guy into the stud. That's what I say. There's no foolproof plan. You draft Drake May and you think he needs a year to learn because he didn't play a ton under the center at North Carolina? Okay. If you think Jaden Daniels needs a year to work under center with Alex Van Pelt and he needs to put on 10, 15 pounds, okay. Look, I don't anticipate the Patriots being in a Houston Texans type situation next year where the rookie quarterback jumps in and all of a sudden you're a playoff team. The Grizz 15, you jumped in late. It happens. I get it. I understand that you jumped in late. Not everybody can make the 11 a.m. call. But here's the thing, Grizz. I've talked consistently about smoke screens through this podcast. So here's my recommendation, my suggestion. If you jump into the pod late and you have an issue like the Grizz has, say, hey, man, you just talked about smoke screens and now you're talking podcasts about it. Number one, when reports come out, I have to discuss reports. That's the job. People want to know the information. So that's number one. Number two, make sure that you listen to the podcast in full and get the full picture in the context. All right. Rob D jumps in. Great show, Nick. I appreciate the daily content. I appreciate you, Rob, as well. Great stuff today. Great interaction. Great back and forth. DV asks in the chat, is Flacco a free agent? Yes, he is. Again, we talked about that a little while ago. So the podcast, we covered a lot here. Went long. Thought it was worth it. If something breaks later today, we'll be all over it. Got a lot of pods to do today, but we'll be all over it at some point if something big breaks. Tomorrow at 11 a.m., we'll have a lot more on the Patriots, the Combine, what's going on. If you're new to the show, give us that thumbs up, more eyeballs. This is one of the most busy shows that we've done since I began this podcast, just looking at the numbers as we're going live. And that's because of you. You're hitting the like button, the thumbs up button. It takes a second of your time, but it means a lot. So like, comment, and subscribe. Ad-free Patreon coming up on March 11th. So you want to be on the lookout for that. Ad-free. We'll have more details on that next week. Rate and review if you're listening on Spotify and Apple Pods. I don't mean to be a pain in the ass, but that's how this game works. More likes, comments, and subscriptions means that I might be able to make a little bit of money doing this thing. So I appreciate all of you. Back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Till then, it's the Nick Cattle Show.